seconds here. We'll stand and say the pledge, if you will. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See everybody out on this smoky Thursday evening. Looking for a motion to approve our agenda. Motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Randy. Second.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor? We got anyone sign up for public comment? We do. Yeah, come on up. We're glad to have you. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeff Warren, Chair of the Planning Board, live on Schoolhouse Road. And really not here to comment so much as I'd be glad to answer any questions as what we as the Planning Board were thinking when we discussed the item of conditional zoning and how that could possibly be a tool that would help the town. And Tuesday night was an example, in my opinion, of a situation where conditional zoning would have been a good option for the 1936 Butler Bridge project, where when we're determining whether or not to recommend rezoning that property, the MRNC, we had to think about any potential use that could go with it. If conditional zoning were in place, we would be able to say, okay, you can have these uses and protect the use that's there now. And if that use went away, then, or that property were sold or et cetera, we wouldn't necessarily have to worry about some of the other uses that would really fit there. So that's our perspective, like my perspective on conditional zoning and how that would fit. So please, if you've got any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you on this event. But I'd be glad to give my perspective. Thank you for this opportunity.
Are you gonna be able to hang out till the public hearing portion of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we might call on you then, or it'll be a little more official too. Okay,
Okay, sir.
thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Hearing none. Approval of the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Sandra. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Alma. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, moving on to our regular agenda, a public hearing for our fiscal year 2023-24 budget. I'll need someone to make a motion for us to enter into public hearing.
Make a motion that we enter in public hearing for the 23-24 budget.
Randy's got us going in. A second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandra. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing. We'll let Landry get us going.
Okay, good evening, council and members of the public. Thank you for coming tonight. So we've got the budget public hearing in front of you this evening, which is an opportunity for the public to come and make comment on the budget document itself. You've seen the full budget document. I saw it once in May, and then we reviewed it in more detail just a couple of weeks ago. So tonight, rather than going through it line by line, I wanted to go through and look at changes that were made based on the council's discussion at the last meeting. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to go over, again, just the changes. I'll highlight some of those in both the operating budget and the capital improvement plan, and then talk about the recommendation and next steps. So just as a quick reminder for those who might be watching, there are a couple of statutory deadlines The first one's April 30th and then June 1st for the presentation. Tonight, we're having the public hearing, and you are free to adopt the budget tonight if you're comfortable. Or you could have additional discussion and make changes, and then you could adopt it at your June 22nd meeting. It has to be adopted by July 1st. So just in summary, the tax rate, my recommendation is it stays the same for the town at 8 cents. Fire department just got its approval from the county to lower their rate to 10 cents. The revenue neutral rate is 15.2 cents. We're assuming a 98% collection rate. A penny is equal to 209,000. And the first couple things you'll see there that are changed is the capital investment, which is reduced by $200,000 based on the last meeting, and then the operating budget decreased by almost $5,000 based on our conversation and some changes since then. So the things that I'm going to go over are a couple of errors that were found in the budget after the presentation. We adjusted some of the numbers based on actual information. So for example, we were estimating costs for certain things based on what we thought they were going to be, but we didn't have actual quotes in hand. We have some of that information now. And then there were a few changes in the operating budget that seemed to be a general consensus at the last meeting. So those were included as well, and I'll go over those specifically. So in revenue, the only thing that changed is the amount of money being pulled out of the assigned fund balance. And that has been reduced because we are going to be doing, let's see if I can, oops, sorry. If we do fewer capital projects at a lower cost, we don't need to pull as much money out of the savings account. So that money is reduced from 1,256,171 to 1,046,618. And I'll get into the detail of that later on in the presentation. So again, on revenue, the only thing that changed was the fund balance appropriated. So we updated this table on the graph to go with it. And that's a reduction in fund balance appropriated. As far as expenditure goes, there's a few things I wanted to highlight. First is the police line item. $982,000 is what was presented to you in May. I was concerned that might change based on the county's budget. However, their budget was adopted this week and we got a finalized budget from them, and that amount has not changed. So it's still at $982,000. The next change on there is debt service. We went ahead and accounted for the full annual payment for the property acquisition. And then the last one is capital, where we reduced several of the project amounts, and that's reflected in the decreased amount of capital expenditure. And I'll touch on capital in a moment. So I've highlighted the departments that have changes in them. First one is administration, and then tax collection, IT, economic development. The debt service, again, is just accounting for a full year's worth of debt payment, and then the capital. And you'll see here there's a new column here. There's the FY24 recommended, what was presented to you back in May, and then the FY24 proposed is what the budget is as of today, taking into account the changes I'm getting ready to go over. So this is unchanged from the last time we talked about it. As far as my recommendation is concerned, it would be to increase the contribution to the parks capital savings reserve from 3/4 of a penny to a full penny, and then leave the town hall rate at 3/4 of 1 penny for a total of 1.75 pennies of the total tax rate equivalent. Under administration, it's a very long budget. The only thing I'm showing here are the things that changed specifically. So I'll just start at the top. The fringe benefits, one is changed. It's reduced because we were accounting for benefits for the deputy tax position, but we changed the benefits over to the tax department. There was a question about the professional services, that second line, 4120, 1999. And that was an estimate. We have revised numbers on that to hire someone to do the pay study. I had called around, gotten some ideas, and we got the proposal late last week, and it's actually just about $5,000. So that could be reduced by about $12,000. The community services line item you'll see went up from when it was presented to you in May and to tonight, and that is because I forgot to include the full funding for the farm market. I only included the SNAP benefits. So that's been adjusted just to reflect that. And then that also removes the Housing Assistance Corporation's request that the council seemed to be on. There seemed to be consensus to do that at the last meeting, so that's been taken out. And then the insurance bonding liability dropped from 55,000 to 30,000. And again, that's one of those ones where we did not have a number yet from our insurance provider. We got that number, and so that number was plugged in. So 55,000 was a gross overestimation. So the actual funding is 29,000 and change. So we round up to 30,000 for that line item. Any questions on the administration changes?
For the 6% raise for
Mhm.
staff,
Mhm,
does that include the park employees?
mhm. It doesn't include part-time, it's all full-time employees.
Okay. Would part-time be getting a raise too?
That's not in the budget, no. We can certainly explore that if the council would like to. In tax collections, these were two mistakes that were corrected when we created this department. I borrowed the plan department's budget and I created a new spreadsheet off of that, and I just missed one of the numbers. That being the fringe benefits, that is not the full amount. It's around 18,000 will be the full cost for that. And then the retirement, again, was just double checking the numbers from the last presentation, so it dropped by $1,800. Under maintenance, under information technology, there's a change in the maintenance contracts line item there at 4110 6805. And that went from 64 to 66,000. We got a revised estimate for our renewals for our website, and it was $2,000 more than we had budgeted. So that's the only change there. Under economic development, the consensus seemed to be to award $40,000 to the Partnership for Economic Development, which would be $20,000 for the Economic Investment Fund and $20,000 for the partnership's operations. I did speak with the partnership, and they are willing to reserve the Economic Investment Fund investment to only Mills River properties. And then the last one there, 4920 4099 economic development incentives. I just had the wrong number in there. 54,000 was incorrect. 58,000 is the actual number. So you can see overall that department was recommended at 121. It's been lowered to 115,000. This is the community service line item I mentioned earlier. This is accounted for in the administration budget, but we do keep a separate tab to keep track of everything on it. So again, I had only included the SNAP program and its $2,000 increase in operations because I misunderstood what the board was, or what the market was requesting. And so we talked about that last time. And then the Housing Assistance Corporation, the second from the bottom there, went from 6,500 to 0. Because when they were presenting their request, they did not have any projects lined up in Mills River. Oh, that's the wrong title. This is actually debt service, not community services. So this is the line item for the debt payment on the new property. I had originally presented 210,931 as the payment for next year. We adjusted that to account for a full year's worth of payment, just to show the actual impact on the operating budget moving forward. That's not the plan, no.
So why are you, I'm with you, James, go ahead.
Well, the request from the board was to account for that full payment in terms of the budget, so that's what we did. And we also learned this week that the LGC, the Local Government Commission, is requiring us to pay more than we had budgeted for this year anyway, because the way that they want the loan structured, it's a level principal payment. So the principal stays the same every month and the interest changes. And we just found out about that on Tuesday. And so that's not something that's in the statute. It's not something that's in their checklist that they gave to us. It's not something any of us knew about until we submitted the application and they said, oh, by the way, this is the way you have to do the loan. It doesn't change the terms of the loan necessarily. Over the interest rate stays the same, payment length stays the same, and the total cost stays the same. It's just the way that the payments are structured shifts a little bit. So it's roughly $42,000 over what we had budgeted, which is $253 and change. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head.
But there's no prepayment penalty.
There's not.
That's a penalty.
What's that?
Pay your interest first.
Hadn't really thought about it like that, but the. Yeah, I just hadn't thought about it like that.
So my question, Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
on that, so we're not gonna close probably until 2-3 months into the next year.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you showing on our proposed budget
Mm-hmm.
the full 12 months? Since our budget goes from July 1st to June the 30th.
I wanted to account for the full payment so that next year this will already be accounted for in the budget. So we can lower it back down if we want, but again, there is that payment requirement by the LGC that is above the 210 that I'm showing. I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, but we can get that for you, but it's. Yeah, it's 253, 252 and change.
And explain to me one more time why the LGC is requiring that.
It's a policy that they have that we didn't know about until Tuesday when the application was submitted.
And the policy states what?
Can you explain that? I don't know I can't explain the details of it.
The policy requires that we amortize, I can't say that word, amortize on what they call level principal payments. I had never heard of such a thing. And what it does is instead of keeping your payment level, it keeps your the amount of paid on your principal level. The net effect of this is that you pay more upfront on your principal, and then about midway through the term of your loan, it levels out more. It doesn't, I was gonna say it doesn't change your interest, but it does. You are paying more interest. Well, no, you're paying more on your more payment upfront, so you're paying more interest upfront.
Like just the first month, so you're really paying for interest for the next month? Or like?
No, it's
time?
instead of your payment being 21, I think it was 21,193.12, if I remember exactly. The first month it's going to be 25 something, 25 and some change, like say 25.5. The next month it's going to be like 25,460, and then it'll continue to go down, but only a little bit. I meant to bring the amortization schedule and I forgot.
So it sounds like the principal portion stays the same, the interest is dropping off because you paid down on principal, correct?
Right,
Okay.
right. But what happens is that your payment is larger in the beginning, but it changes every single month.
Because we're, just like James said, we're paying interest first.
Yes. You
It's
are.
like PMI, but for this.
So how,
I did argue, since it was a policy and not a statute, did we have to follow it? They said not if you want to be approved.
But they're loaning us the money.
No.
we're
No.
borrowing the money from its owner finance from Bradley. He's carrying the note.
But the local government commission will not allow us to enter into this loan without their permission. That is a statute, that they have the oversight.
So you're saying it's 250, well, 253 for the first 9 months, essentially, if we buy it in August. So it'll be 253 the following year?
It'll go up next year as well.
It'll be about 294 next year because we'll be making more payments.
12 versus 9 or 10.
The local government commission's goal is for us to pay this off faster.
Well, then just argue for a 30-year note and then we'll do it in 20 and everybody's happy.
I'm not sure your seller would agree to that. Thank you.
So does that? So we had talked about with Bradley about, you know, if we came into some money, maybe with the grant opportunity that we have. So how is that gonna plug in whenever if we are able to receive Nicole's $500,000 grant that she's chasing?
You can still make a one-time payment. It's not, there's no penalty for doing that.
Well, I know
It'll
that,
just
but I
be
mean,
free
how's
to
that
pay.
gonna affect the principal and the payment schedule?
Yes, you have to, if you make a one-time lump sum payment, you have to re-amortize. Run a new schedule and make your payments off of that,
That's per the owner or LGCC?
the LGC.
Well, if I
All of
remember-
this is.
So there is prepayment penalties.
But it's not imposed by your seller. What you could do in 2-3 years is totally restructure the loan. Now, the local government commission, if we don't get it down below their thresholds, we're still gonna have to follow their rules and still make payments on their schedule.
So I know this is getting kind of off topic here, but we're talking about a big deal for the town, so I had a question to ask. So if we enter into this, so it looks like it's gonna cost us about $4,000 a month more than what we were thinking, right?
Yeah, it comes out to about 41,000 a year. So yes, it comes out to just around $4,000 a month.
So, and we were initially stretching it out for the 13 years, correct?
Mhm.
So since we're paying that much more in interest, when does the interest run completely out?
After 156 payments,
That's not adding up in my mind here.
It-
Because you're paying that $4,000 per month, the 40-some thousand dollars that you just quoted, extra more than what we thought, because the $21,000 a month was gonna pay it out in 13 years, correct?
yes, but your payment is going down. The amount of your payments going down every month. So as you're getting further out, you're making a smaller payment.
Well, then why did you say next year it's gonna be $294,000?
We're making,
At least
we're making more
2 or
payments.
3 more.
That $253,000 is 12 payments, correct?
Prior to the change in the rule that they told us on Tuesday. Yes, that was the full 12-month payment under our previous calculation. But the rule change that they made us aware of this week requires that extra $41,000 a year payment. So this would be, it's not equal to 12-month, it's equal to 10-month payment next year, I think is what it is.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
10-month payment, assuming that we're able to close in August and start in September.
So that is a 9-month payment. 253 is for 9 months, not 12.
No, he's just budgeted the 12-month view. So next year we can see what it's doing. Because we really he actually don't know what this year's gonna be because he don't know exactly when we'll close. It could be 10 months, 9 months, 8 months, depending on if we get held up.
Yeah, this was taking the payment that we had, that 210,931, adding the 42 and change that the LGC is requiring us to pay next year. So you get the 250, it's 252 and change. And 253,318 is what we would have paid if we were paying a full 12 months on the loan under our way we had been planning to pay for it. So it's coincidental that they're roughly the same number. But then next year it would go up to that 294 and change, I think is what it would do.
Basically, the way I hear it is it'll start out, the payment's a little higher, about 6.5 years through it. It'll be back where it was, where we envisioned it being to start with. Then from that point, it starts falling below the 21,000. Correct?
I don't have the amortization schedule in front of me, but
That's what it
that's,
sounds like it's doing.
Yeah, and I'm with him. I don't have it in front of
That's
me,
fine.
but yes. Single one of your payments is getting smaller over time.
Yes.
Well, and if I recall correctly, our contract with Mr. Johnston spells out the amount of a lump sum by which they would recalculate the amortization. I don't remember, it's 100,000, or if we put in 20,000, they're not going to go to the trouble to recalculate, but it seemed
Mhm.
like it's in the contract, or that It's in the contract. I don't want to say it's $100,000, but there is
a number in there.
there is a number. It has to be a significant payment for them to
Right.
go to the trouble. So, you get a benefit for paying on the principal, but it has to be of a certain amount. And I think it's 100,000. But it was dictated between our attorney and the seller's attorney.
So with that being said, even if we was lucky enough to get a grant for 500, we paid that on it. The payment schedule will remain the same with the payments being a little higher to start with, going when it's re-amortized, and then it'll be a lower payment at the end. It's just the way they've set it up for some reason. And it's really so you can pay it off quicker, it sounds like. You'd have the option of paying it off quicker.
Or you're certainly gonna pay the interest off quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Exactly.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this is all through the state's health.
LGC.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you may recall mention in conversations with our attorney that each time she goes in front of the LGC, things change slightly. And I mean, that is what happened. We submitted the application and Sue was in contact with staff representatives down there and she said, essentially, oh, by the way, we didn't tell you this. And it's not in state statute because we asked, we said, where is this requirement? And it's not in the statute. It's a policy they have internally. And we asked the question, well, can we just ignore it since it's not a statute? And she said, you can, but you won't get approved. So it's a very unfair position to place us in. Fortunately, our numbers for our 12-month payment were about equal with this additional payment. But it does change the breakdown of the payments over time. But again, they do go down instead of staying the same.
and I wasn't trying to be a horse's rear end or anything.
No, I understand.
That's
This is the first time you're seeing this.
And I'm happy to share a copy of the amortization schedule tomorrow. If that will help you any.
Probably help us.
And I also have an article that I found that explained all this to me that I'll share as well as to the pros and cons of it.
Okay, so in summary for the operational budget, we corrected a few errors that were just mistakes in the spreadsheets. We adjusted a few things based on actual numbers that we got back from various folks. Made some changes based on what I understood the consensus was last time with the partnership and the various nonprofits. So when it's all said and done, the budget that was presented to you on May 11th was $6,117,271. And the recommended operating budget tonight is $6,112,718. So it's $4,500 difference there. So for the capital budget, again, similar changes were made. We did get an actual quote for one of the projects, which is in your packet later on. And then we also made some changes based on, again, what I thought the consensus was at the last meeting. So I'm only going to hit the departments that we changed. Transportation, we changed because there was a question about planning for future improvements to the entrance to town hall. It's not in this year's budget, but we did put it in the document just so that it's accounted for future budgeting planning purposes. So we put in 250,000 for that. But again, that's a couple of years out, really just a placeholder to keep it on top of mind as the time gets closer, not in this year's budget. For this year's budget, we changed a few things. So I'll start there with the managed green space. We had budgeted $175,000 for that. That was our engineer's estimate from a couple of months ago. We got the bids in last week and it was significantly lower than that. So we're reducing that from 175 to 100,000. And then on the mower line item, we had $100,000 in there for additional equipment for maintenance of the backfield as well as the park next door. If we do place those in ag leases, our maintenance needs will be less. And furthermore, if we contract out additional maintenance, we talked a little bit about that last month, then we won't need all that equipment. Maintenance facilities, That was money, we had $75,000 in there for improvements to the structure next door. But again, the consensus last month seemed to be that we're not going to make significant improvements in that next year. So that money was taken out of that budget. And then land acquisition, it was $1 million. It's $1,020,000 now to account for the master plan that we'll have to do to submit that Part F grant. So overall savings on that were about $205,000. This doesn't affect the operational budget because again, when the budget is developed, we figure out the operational needs and calculate revenues accordingly. And then we plan for our capital expenditures as they're one-time expenditures. The majority of that money is a one-time withdrawal from your fund balance to pull in. We do show it as revenue, so it shows up in the operating budget, but it's a one-time expenditure. So just in summary, we made a couple of changes based on the proposal that we got. The recommended budget last month was 3.3 million. It's now 3.1 million for a savings of $205,000. So that's all I had in terms of changes to the actual numbers. I did include an additional slide to talk about options if the board is interested in lowering the tax rate. Some things that you could do that would have varying degrees of impact on the organization, but options that are certainly in front of you. That's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dan?
I have one with regards to the capital improvement plan. It occurred to me after the open house in the main station. I know the town, I guess, sought some state funding that was available with a traffic signal. I don't, have we heard anything back from
We've
the
not.
state with
No,
regards?
they've not adopted a budget yet. So
I just didn't know if it was prudent to also work that into the long range plan, because that was a significant cost, was the traffic signal for the new station. I mean, hopefully this other monies will come available, but I didn't know if we had heard back. It sounds like we haven't.
I will check on that.
Anything else?
Any questions or just discussions? So I'd like to see our tax rate lower. I think everybody here knows that that's the way I feel about it. So Monday night, the county adopted their budget and they reduced the tax rate 13 cents. So that's about 23% less on the rate this year than last year. So I said this last meeting, I'd say again, I would like to take our 15 cents, add in our land payment and a raise for employees and call it a day.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. So I'm willing to listen to everybody else.
When you say 15, you're talking about that revenue neutral rate that was in
Our revenue neutral rate is
Okay.
15.2 and our land payment is about a penny 0.21, I think. So,
Anything, Sandra, you got anything?
I'm with Randy on the revenue neutral rate. I believe that would be good if we can do it.
Jane?
I would like to propose not hiring, reducing the contingency to a percentage that's less than it is. Of what the thought is on putting that towards saving money in the park,
the capital reserve.
the capital reserve for the park, like take that allocated amount of cents and for 1 year, but it just boost that account.
Not yet, though.
I'm saying take what Randy's saying minus your revenue neutral 15.2, add in the penny or what is it, penny and a half.
It's a penny 0.2 for our land payment.
So that leaves that's 16.4. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're a penny, we're talking about a penny and a half, taking the park fund and increasing that for 1 year by a penny and a half. We're already doing it at a penny, right? We went from 3/4 to 1
Mm-hmm.
instead of just hiring and leaving in a high amount of contingency. I think. Although we could add contingency to the debt service if that rate's gonna change every year.
We could look at things too, like cutting down on the prices of some of the things, like I think I discussed with you, Daniel, to ask you to reach out to Nicole about the golf cart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one that got ordered, it's not been delivered yet, correct? You have,
Oh, it's been on order for almost 6 months. We've been waiting on it,
right,
and our Polaris is past its useful.
right. Well, we have a gentleman in Mills River that refurbishes those and redoes them. You might check with him about the Polaris and give him an opportunity to look at that, and it might give us an extra one then.
As I said, we've already have that this was approved actually in last year's budget, and it was a carryover. So I mean, I don't know for us to break that contract at this point, but we have already ordered it, 6+ months ago.
Jeff, what you got?
Well, I'll reiterate that I still think it's wise to maintain the 8 cents the town collects. And, you know, in terms of yielding to the concerns of Councilman Cantrell and Councilman Austin, as well as Councilwoman Good, you know, the park maintenance supervisor, you know, I can see the rationale for postponing that, kicking it back a year, because we don't know. Or better yet, I would defer or echo James's comment that the money that was earmarked for the maintenance supervisor maybe go into the park capital reserve this year, but go ahead and sort of use it as a placeholder, and then it can always be used for improvements on the park and this new property after it's acquired, or if we need to convert it back to a position. But I would advocate that we give the town staff the liberty to change our part-time admin person to a full-time, because I just, knowing from my personal experience in supervision and management, that I don't want to jeopardize career employees by overtaxing them with, you know, multitude of tasks that could be handled by, you know, a support person, administrative person. So I'm afraid in an effort to save half a position, you could, you know, jeopardize career employees, which, you know, we have a lot invested in our staff, and most of them have proven to be career employees that do this a long time. So, like I said, I'm not as married to the maintenance supervisor for this upcoming fiscal year, but I'm advocating that we increase that half a position for the admin. But 18 cents, I think, would be the prudent thing to do, given everything that we're taking on this year.
You have anything else before I throw my 2 cents in?
I'm waiting for
Not 2 cents.
it.
Right, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I've been around this a long time. 8 cents is 8 cents, but the reevaluation is where the difference is. But in my opinion, the reevaluation happens for a reason, to get everything back in line, whether you like it or don't like it. Me as a builder, I know each and every one of you wouldn't sell your place probably for what the county's got priced for. So it's still undervalued. I couldn't rebuild it for you for what they got praised for. So I think to keep the town running fluid, just like it always has, I think we leave it as is. And just like the land hiring the deputy tax collector, what better trainer could we possibly have? If she's gone and we go just hire someone and our tax collection rate falls to 93, 94, 95, whatever, you know, is that doing justice to the town of Mills River when we got a perfect person that could train somebody up to the standard that she looks at it is unbelievable. No matter where you go in this state to see a number that she can collect that with the staff's help. And this place is well maintained and kept up. I think everybody in town's proud of it. There's always gonna be a few that complain, no matter what we do, up or down. But my problem with this, and I've said it before in the past, is we cut it now. You know, a lot of it's not gonna be around when it has to go right back up in a few years. And in saying that, to leave it alone now is kind of silent treatment compared to raising it in a few years, even if it's raising it back up to where we're at today. So I would vote tonight to leave it as presented. It has been brought to my attention that we could possibly do something in the future, not this week, but in the future, to maybe help some ag people and some by giving them a slight reduction, like the farm credit that they give at the county level. I don't know if we could do that or not, but it's something we could look into if we're trying to hold up to the farmer's end of the deal, and maybe some look at some other aspects, but that's way out in the future. I can't think that quick. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, doesn't going revenue neutral include, the price of things that have gone up and what you put in the budget?
No, revenue neutral would be cutting the revenue by,
$332,000 is what I come up with.
there you have it.
Well,
But-
if we.
But
well,
half of
well,
that,
Well, revenue neutral, let's start with revenue neutral. If we do revenue neutral and we drop it 15 to start with, that's 3 cents. That's 209 times 3. It's gotta be a lot more than that, but we're gonna add some back on, correct, to cover our bills? Cause you're talking about 627 revenue neutral. Then we're gonna add some back, correct?
That was after the land payment and the raises is what I got.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So the reevaluation countywide was
Mhm.
averaged about 42%, right? Somewhere in that area.
Countywide, yeah, I think that was right.
Countywide averaged about 42% increase in people's valuation of properties. So if we leave our tax rate at the same, the average, and Mills River was a little higher, right, than what the average was.
No, it was slightly less. The Mills River increase was around 33.
Okay, we'll use 33. So we're going to increase people's Mills River taxes by 33%. I just don't think that's acceptable.
Let's ask for any public comment. I think we need to do that too. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Anybody, any public comment? Anybody willing to get up and give us your thoughts on it? Be glad to hear them.
probably have a lot to say, but sure.
Okay, come on.
Hey, Brian.
Ross, you guys know, most of you know me. Don't hide your head yet. I agree with 99% of what you say, of everyone up here. Thank you. Shannon, you and I are on the same page way more often than you probably know. Not on this one.
I get how tough the future might be, but don't penalize me today for that.
Okay.
Don't do that. That's wrong. Do the hard things in the future if you're asked to, but don't take the easy way out today.
Well, I'm not taking the easy way out, sir.
Okay.
We're fixing to buy some property
Right.
and I'd like to see that get going.
Right.
And if we cut it to the nitty gritty, I think staff will tell you, we can't even. With what's proposed, we would have to probably hire the maintenance done over there or keep it in ag lease, and that may be what the citizens of Mills River want. I just don't envision that. I envision turning some of that over into usable property for the citizens.
I
I
haven't
wouldn't
talked to
wanna try
anybody
that.
who's not happy about that land.
Okay,
Everyone
okay.
does. What I don't want is to collect money and then find a way to spend it.
Okay,
So when you say get it down to the, to the nitty gritty, I don't think we're doing that. 33% more revenue is not bare bones. I'm not a fan of 15.2 either. Okay, I'm not. I'm a fan of increasing the staff over here at the park. I'm a fan of this property over here. I know how the spending goes, though. If you collect more, you're gonna spend it. And now guess what? In the future, that budget is now a higher starting point. In every conversation, it compounds and it compounds. So I worry about that. Our rate is fantastic. You guys know that. Our values are not replacement values. Right? We all know that. But as Randy keeps reminding us, the real people, sitting at home, writing that check for 33% more, they don't care about replacement cost right now. That they're looking at that bill and seeing that it's gone up, and it's gone up from the county too.
oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure if the 15.2 reflects the fire department's rate, but that does,
Yeah, it does.
but it does not include the land acquisition. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so everyone here loves that land. The idea that we're doing that is fantastic. But you asked for 2 cents, and in this case, I would love to see somewhere in the middle of where you guys, where you
Gotcha.
guys are at.
Gotcha.
All right? Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Anyone else?
Hi, Kristen Rentoul. I actually was on town council where we used to live in Lake Park, North Carolina, which is in Union County. And when I got on council, it was great. We were rolling. We had a lot of plans. And then we started looking into our first budget with the year that I was on and started asking a lot of questions. And it turned out that council had not increased tax rate for 9 years. And that was because of various reasons. Union County had done such and such, there were pulls from other pieces. But the problem is then Lake Park, even after I left, endured 5 years of increases, which was tough to see every single year your municipality raising your rate. And I just say this just in abundance of caution of you don't want to look too far in the future and say, we'll deal with that then, because that 33%, that's big. But you got to sort of hedge yourself as to not necessarily increasing your budget and spending the money, but they were socking it away in a rainy day fund, which was fantastic. And we used the money, but it put us behind in other places, if that makes sense. So that's just my 2 cents of something that I had to make hard decisions about for a few years.
I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? For public comment, anyone? Hearing none. Well, we'll go back to our, we got the option of, closing the public hearing. Unless y'all want to discuss more in detail. We're still going to discuss later, but. Is there any reason to leave it open for public? If not, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing portion of this.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Randy. Second,
I'll second.
Sandra. Any discussion before we close? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So. Well, we got the option of voting on it, or we got the option of recessing it for the next one, but the next one will have to get her done if we do it then. And I would ask that if you want to lower this rate, if that's your goal is to lower this rate, you need to be able to tell that man sitting right over there what you want to cut out of the budget. You gotta be man enough to do it, or lady. I mean, that's just me saying, so something's gotta be cut.
I mean, isn't that Daniel's option? We give him a rate and he figures out how to use that money?
I think you're dodging, yes, but if I was sitting on the outside, I'd think you're pawning it off on him as to what to cut. I think as the five of us making the hard choices here, we need to personally tell him what we would like to see cut. I think that's fair. Because if he cuts something out that you don't like or Sandra don't like, you're just gonna be right back. He's gonna have to figure out a way to try to get work back in. Is that a fair statement? Dan?
That's right.
Which way would you rather have it, Daniel? Would you rather us tell you the rate and then you figure it out, or would you rather us tell you what to cut?
I'd rather you tell me what to cut, and I put some options up on the screen just to give you a starting point. And I think that, most of these won't have a serious impact on the operation of the town. And that's how I look at it. I gave you the presentation back in May based off of 8 cents. And so that's the rate that I had in my mind. And and looking at ways to reduce the rate, if that's council's desire, I looked at some things that would not have an impact operationally speaking, as a starting point. And those are things like reduction in the amount of savings that we're putting in capital reserve. That doesn't affect operations. It affects future investment opportunities, but it's not going to affect the day-to-day. The Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development, they've requested the funding. I think it's fair that the town pay its fair share, but in terms of our ability to get our jobs done, that's not going to impact anything. Removing or reducing the contingency line items, again, is not going to be a make or break in terms of operational ability. The reason we put those in there this year is because it's simpler in terms of financial management to be able to pull from that contingency within a department to backfill if we overspend and say, we hired too many engineers or something to that effect. We can just shift that money. Whereas if we don't have that, all it means is we come back to you and say we need an additional $5,000 in this budget, and you'd have to approve that. The delaying or hiring of the parks positions, that's where we're starting to get into some operational concerns. Now, if you wanted to go back to more of a contract arrangement like we had a couple of years ago with groundskeeping, we can certainly do that. And we wouldn't need that maintenance position this year, or will we probably even fill the existing vacancy that we have. The one thing that I will stress that I strongly stand firm on is we need to hire someone in that deputy tax collector position. We need to upgrade that to a full-time position. We've talked about the reasons why, but you can't just hire a tax collector off the street. It takes time, and there's only, I want to put our tax collector on the spot, but we're all working with about a 2-year timeline for retirement. That's only 2 billing cycles, so that's 2 opportunities to train someone on that process, which is not an easy process. In addition to that, we need administrative support. We've got a lot going on, and none of us have, administrative assistant here to help out. We've got our deputy clerk, town clerk, who covers that as much as possible, but trying to get her trained up to fill the clerk role is hindered by not having that additional support. It was very good to have that part-time position this year. And again, when it went vacant, I intentionally made the decision not to fill it with the plan to request it being upgraded to a full-time position in this budget. So to answer your question, Randy, in summary, I've presented the budget how I think it makes the most sense for the town, and it's not going to hurt my feelings if you want to take something out of it. My goal is to just show you the implications, good or bad, of whatever decision you want to make. Or pros and cons, I guess, not good or bad.
If we could work through those, we might could just go ahead and dump into this budget tonight.
So with your permission, I'd like to just make my suggestion.
Okay.
I'd like to go with what you had, everything that we have this year currently, which would be our 15.2%, correct? Or cents on our rate.
The
right?
revenue neutral.
And add our land payment and the 6% salary increases for the employees. And that's it.
Okay.
So just so I'm doing my math right, you're coming up to, that would be 16.6.
I think it's between 16.4 and 16.5, so, yeah. If my math's right. Which it rarely is.
Daniel, how easy is that gonna be for you to generate us some numbers? Is it something doable tonight that we could vote on?
Yeah, I'm looking at the email I sent you guys a couple of days ago, trying to figure out. Yes, so adding the increase for the land payment and the increase, you're looking at 1.41 pennies. Which you can see the 16.61.
And that's all in. That's the 292. Or whatever 12 months is gonna be with this horrible terms we have.
For this year, yes, it will change next year, but for this year, yes. Then, now, I don't mean to be a stickler, Randy, but just for clarification, when we talked about keeping things as they are, we currently have the part-time position in the budget. Do you want to keep that or not have that anymore? That was added this year. For the.
That
administrative
was
assistant.
currently, that was in this year's budget,
Mhm,
correct?
mhm,
I mean, I'm fine with that.
okay. So doing those two things would get you to 16.61. So the town rate would be 6.61 cents. Well, that would encourage you to not have maybe like 16.25 or 16 even, something like that, or 16.5.
Now, the email you sent council this week, your scenario one sounds like what Councilman Austin's seeking, but your number that you came up with now versus what's in the email, it said 1.74 and that
Mhm.
was, and that doesn't reflect, that reflects a 253 debt payment, not a 280, 290 or whatever it is, but
It reflects the 253 payment, and it also reflects the increase in law enforcement contract, which is a third of a penny. That's the difference between 1.61 versus the 1.74. I did that out, right?
so then what would happen under the scenario that Councilman Austin just without law enforcement increase of $68,000?
Without the law enforcement contract, it
Wow.
would,
I mean, the number you calculated is in there, 1.4, whatever it was, you said that does not include the sheriff's
Mhm.
proposed.
Yeah, so
Cost.
the rate with Councilman Austin's request of keeping the staffing the same, as well as the debt payment would put us at 16.61 total, which includes the fire department, but it would be 6.61 for the town. I'm assuming we want to pay the full sheriff's contract. That would be another third of a penny.
So what are we at now? 6.61 or 6.74?
If we did starting at revenue neutral, 15.2 plus 1.74 would put us at 16.94.
Well, I'll go back to something the mayor said at our last meeting about, when you look at our core services and our obligations to fire protection, law enforcement, we're not, it's a misnomer to say we're talking about 18 cents. We're talking about 10 for the fire department and 4 3/4 or something of that nature for. So really discretionary these 5 council members is 4, I'm sorry, 3.25 cents. So I'm just saying that when we talk about cutting it, we're talking about taking it from 3.25 to 1 something, or, you know, we're really not. The other things are fixed for,
They're hard numbers.
so to understand what we're doing tonight, I think we should say our tax rate, our discretionary is probably not the right word, but that's what I'm going to use. Our discretionary tax rate right now, under the town manager's recommendation, is under 4 cents. It's 3.25 or something like that. So we're talking about going from 3.25 of the managers to something like half that rate. And that's for everything else that the town provides, including recreation. So I just say that and trying to reinforce my position. I think it's prudent at this time, given the thing in front of us, that we stay at that 3.25 cent that we charge or levy for the other services the town provides.
I'll entertain a motion. We gotta get it, we gotta get there somehow.
I'll make a motion. So withdraw that for just a second. What are you wanting a motion for? You're wanting a motion for us to set a tax rate, or are you wanting a motion for us to adopt the budget as presented, or what do you want?
I would like that, Daniel, if we. And so if we adopt by motion a tax rate. Are we still gonna have to, or do we even need that? Or are you gonna have to go back and work these numbers and come back here on the 22nd? And adopt the official budget?
There's 2 options. One, you could make a motion to basically adopt the budget per Councilman Austin's direction, which would be only the increase for the debt payment and the salaries. And if that's what you want to do, then I wouldn't present you the tax rate tonight because I want to double check all this stuff. But you could adopt the budget with those things in mind.
Okay.
And then we would come back on the 22nd with the actual ordinance and everything like that.
Is that what you wanna do?
It's up to you. I mean,
Okay.
I'm asking you, what do you want?
I
What do you
just-
want a motion for?
That'll probably be the cleanest. We come back on the 22nd with it, a hard copy to
Mhm.
adopt, if that's what we're gonna do. What do you think? Okay. We just need to decide, by consensus. I don't even think we need it by motion if we're giving him instruction on how to develop this for the 22nd.
It's probably not a requirement, but I think at this point, it would be to staff's benefit if you could
By
do it
motion.
by motions. We have clear direction.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I guess your motion would need to indicate to him pretty much what you've already said, what we're gonna do with the land payment, the pay increases, the sheriff's contract, little bit, so on and so forth.
So I will make a motion that we will take Daniel's revenue neutral rate of 15.2 cents.
Mhm.
Add only the land payment and the salary increases for the staff, and come back with a tax rate. And I'll make that motion.
So Randy made the motion. Need a second,
I'll second it.
Sanders second. Any discussion?
What are you gonna do with the contingency? Or you're wanting him to just go off of not hiring new and do the math backwards essentially?
I think that's Daniel's job.
I don't think that it is, Randy, with respect, sir.
I think.
I mean, policy wise, I presented a budget that's best for the operation of the town.
And we're telling, and if this passes, we're telling you, this is the rate we want Daniel to work with.
Mhm.
And it's Daniel to come up with or the town manager to come up with how it works.
Mhm. I mean, I can cut
We're
Would-
still
would-
gonna revisit
If-
this when you bring those numbers back, correct?
No, not if we do, just.
If you want to, if you want to stay until midnight and we'll go through line by line by line and penny by penny by penny, we can do it that way.
I mean, however you want to do it. I just am saying, I don't think it's appropriate for me to make the policy decision on how.
It's
you
not
want
a policy decision, Daniel. We're setting a rate. This is the money you have to work with,
Mhm.
pay the bills. That's the way I see it.
But you gotta understand where he's at. Are you leaving it up to him to cut or deny the Henderson County's number? To put it back like it was last year, is to get to where he needs to be?
Well, that was in my motion,
Okay,
to take this rate, which this rate with the new evaluations is last year's money, correct?
With some adjustments for natural growth, yes, that's the idea.
So your motion is to not hire. Your.
Yes, my motion is to make the only addition to this revenue neutral rate is to add the land payment and the salary increases for the employees.
So you're not necessarily concerned if that comes out to 16.4 or 16.6, just.
Right.
Well.
Well, concern I have, Randy, is, so we've got $68,000, which is basically non-negotiable, the sheriff's department for their services. And then, by the same token, it's a 10-cent levy for the for the fire department. However, you know, they're at 2.1 and 10 cents, 10 times the 209,000 is only 209. And that's based on 100% collections, I think. So anyway, I think there's even we'll come up short with what we're paying the fire department based on their 2.175. I don't think we'll collect that at 10 cents. But so there's two things right there that I don't know where you envision those would come from.
Are they gonna reduce the contingency line items?
Have to. It's 0.73 cents of our tax valuation.
Mhm.
Yes.
So-
I mean, they are high. There is in every budget room for that, but this is, yes.
So Daniel, and I'm not trying to be argumentative here or anything, it's
Mhm.
just, didn't you tell us at the meeting, one of the budget meetings, that you would like for us to tell you the rate and you would come back to us with the numbers?
Mhm.
So how is this different?
That was a
Different than
mistake. I shouldn't have said that. I should have let you do it. 'Cause like I said, this is a policy discussion at this point.
well, the
And-
thing is we've got so far into this now, we're down to days. Back then, he would have took that budget number, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just speaking as what I have to do every day with my budget for these houses.
Mhm.
If somebody comes to me and wants to build a house, and they tell me day one, they got $500,000 to spend, then I can build them this house. But if they let me get this thing started and they keep changing, at the end, they need 675, I can't make it happen. They only had 500. So I see where you're at. Back in February, March, if we'd have told him this was the number, he would have orchestrated all this paperwork to where all the numbers were punched in. And I'm not saying that ain't what we do. I'm saying I don't agree with it, but I ain't saying that's what we do. I just don't know how in the world you would expect any business to stay exactly where it was last year, 5 piece of land.
It would have helped too if we would have had a workshop on this to where we could have sat down and talked about different things and educated each other and worked things out.
We could have.
Well, I was told nobody wanted one, cause I did.
I did. I didn't see this coming like this.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative either. My point with policy discussion is, let's say you tell me to set you want me to work off of 16.5 cents. Let's just use that as an example. And we cut contingency from the budget. Well, I could leave contingency, but I could say, maybe we don't want to, I don't know. Can't think of an example, but I could cut something out that you don't want out of the budget is what I'm trying to get at. And that's a difficult proposition for me because I don't know, based on our discussions, exactly what you want. I know in general terms, we've looked at numbers, but that's where it turns into the policy. Because if we don't hire a position and we end up not being able to keep up with our services, then, that impacts, that's a policy decision that impacts the needs of the community. Or if we end up needing to contract more than what we thought or something like that, there's just a lot of decisions that need to be made that will impact the town's ability to do certain things. And I presented to the budget, that was my recommendation, and that's what I'm going with. And if you want to work off of a tax rate and say, I want these two things in there, then the rest is whatever. That there's 149 line items in this budget, and I got to figure out which ones you want to adjust.
Well, in Randy's motion, he suggested at least a couple of them to cut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a start.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I understand it, that Ms. Sue is irreplaceable. I understand that. But we have to look at one fiscal year, not two.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no, if there's no retirement plan in this next calendar fiscal year,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as of right now, you are seriously understaffed, but you have 1.5 or 2 openings right now, right?
We have openings in our Parks Department and in our administrative department for administrative assistant, a part-time position. Yes.
The programmer and
And the maintenance technician.
I thought the person up front.
They haven't filled it yet.
So
Haven't filled it.
Yeah, we have
it's 2.5.
yes. Total for the whole organization.
So my honest question would be, we say, okay, and then we also say, okay, to hiring the parks and the changing it to deputy or
Mhm.
full-time. So then there's 2.5 plus the 1.5. Are you gonna come to us and say that you need to add on to the backside of the building because now there's too much staff and not enough offices? I mean, that's 5 people. You're doubling your administrative staff.
Yeah. So we have a couple of office spaces now that are available. We are acquiring that building next door, which could house people in the future. So yes, it's going to be a challenge for a little while. We'll be crowded.
I have heartburn over hiring the people for the parks because we're gonna have to do it at least for a couple of years. We can't. It's just impossible. I'm hesitant on the,
What do you do in 2 years when our tax collector leaves and we can't find one? What do you do then?
If worse comes to worse, we can hire it out through Henderson County like one of the other municipalities does and let them collect it for a smaller rate.
Then do we have, okay.
I agree with you 100%. I really do. I mean, spirited arguments at my job over stuff like this, but North Carolina's a right to work state. Everybody can leave tomorrow. I mean,
That's what I don't want them to do. I don't want to run them off today.
I understand that.
That's where I'm at. Where I'm at. Just where I'm at. I mean, there could be consequences to the whole deal. I mean, I'm just telling you. I mean, I'm smart enough to know.
Well,
I mean, it's well to you. I mean, but.
no, I'm not gonna get my bluff called on that one
Well, I'm
then,
not.
and I'll gladly,
Well, that's fine.
That, no, we're not gonna hold positions over our heads. If we don't do this.
Well, that's fine. I'm just telling you, I don't look a year ahead. I try to look 5 years ahead. That's where I try to look. Even with this land purchase, I look at that 50 years from now. And if you think that looking at this budget is a 1 year look, you're badly mistaken.
What is?
If
It's
that's the
exactly a
case, you
year.
wouldn't look way back in it, and you wouldn't have all these forward numbers
But I don't
to get.
I don't
ready.
care about July 2nd, 2024 at all, specifically on this. On the vision for the park, I do, but on the dollars, I don't. Because if we don't make it through 24, we don't have the money for 25.
How do you plan on not making it? What would make you not make it?
If we're looking at this with always needing, in 2, 3, 4 years ahead, then that's fine. That can be on the, what do you normally put? You put like a second column, like a projected for the, that's fine. But specifically on the dollars, we need to allocate, spend and collect that year's exact numbers.
Okay.
That's the whole reason for a budget.
Sure. Okay, I'm good. Go ahead. So we got a first, we got a second. Any more discussion? We'll call for a vote. No more discussion. All right,
Do you need me to repeat this motion?
please make sure we got it where you want.
What I took down that Mr. Austin said was a motion to set the tax rate at the revenue neutral rate of 15.2, plus whatever was needed for the land payment and the 6% salary increases for staff.
That was my motion.
Okay, all right, Sandra, second. So all in favor? There, 1,
Aye.
2. That's you, 3, 3, 4. Any discussion? Any against? Aye. Aye. So we have significant information to move forward with the budget now. Or do we
I'll
need-
make the changes that has been voted upon and we'll present to you in a full document
Okay.
before the next meeting.
All right.
Do we need to close public hearing?
We're done, Dan.
We don't, okay.
All right.
Let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll get back after.